Welcome, all you citizens of the world. It's time for another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. Once again, I'm Michael James up here in Chicago's 49th Ward, our Blue Ward. And we've got a really nice lineup today. You know, it's not too long until we have this big election that will probably determine all of our futures, not only here in Chicago, but throughout the states, the Western Hemisphere, in fact, the whole world. A lot riding on this, and we've got two people who are actively engaged in helping to turn out the vote. Going to join us, Katy Hogan, a sometimes co-host and a producer of Live from the Heartland, and one of the original hosts, Paul Draus, who teaches up at University of Michigan, Dearborn, and is going to talk to us a little bit about what's going on around the Arab community and the vote for Harris. A little bit after that, we'll take a musical break, and we'll be back with the one and only Win Noll, who has a new tune out about women's rights, and we'll talk to her about her band and her music. And then the finale of the show, so to speak, will be our interview with Barbara Dane from back in the day, I think in 2021. She was 94 then. She just passed away this past Sunday, and we'll play some of that for you. So stick around. We'll have a good time. You'll get a lot of information, and hopefully you'll be inspired to go forth to not only turn out some good numbers in this election, but to help make the world a better place. Be right back. Okay, all you friends and neighbors, you brothers and sisters, welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of October 26th. And as we mentioned at the outset, we're getting real close to the election. And I've invited two of the people who have been long involved with this show, Katy Hogan and Paul Draus, to come on and talk about where they see things at regarding the election with just less than 2 weeks to go. Katy's been working with Operation Swing State and going up to Wisconsin with big groups of people. Paul lives over in Dearborn, where he teaches at University of Michigan at Dearborn. And I'm going to start off with a quote I got from James Carville, who has been pretty negative a lot of the time and, sends panic emails. But today, which would be Wednesday, a couple of days before the show goes up, in the New York Times op-ed, he said, Harris will win. 3 reasons Harris will win. 1 was Mr. Trump is a repeat electoral loser. This time will be no different. 2, money matters, and Ms. Harris has it in droves. And number 3, my final reason is 100% emotional, and it's just a feeling. And he basically says that we're told how America is too divided, hopelessly stricken by tribalism, etc., but goes on to say he doesn't think that holds up. So I'm going to turn it over to you, who are people on the front lines. Katy, why don't you give us a little kickoff about Operation Swing State and what you've been doing and what you've discovered in the process.
Okay. Well, it's an unusual campaign. It's every campaign is different, and this one that's true of as well. I think when I was on the show a little earlier in this election cycle, I might have mentioned the enormous amount of volunteers that have come out of the woodwork. And that continues to happen. Last Saturday, when we had a room full of canvassers just before putting them on the road to go to Milwaukee last week, as I do every time, I said, how many people are here for the first time? How many people are doing this as their first canvass in their lives? Put your hand up. And again, last week, it was almost half the people in the room. And when that happens, I have 2 reactions. 1, I sort of have an involuntary sob of joy. And 2, I just start applauding, and as does everyone in the room, to have this new energy taking part in the election and, kind of grabbing their power finally. So Operation Swing State has really knocked a hell of a lot of doors, over 100,000 doors in both Michigan and Wisconsin. Last weekend, we had 1,000 people in Wisconsin alone from Chicago and environs. So we're now to the point where the leaders of Operation Swing State, in communication with some folks like us on the East Coast are sort of in a competition to see how many people they can on the East Coast get into the state of Pennsylvania versus Chicago going into our two states. I was told, and I'm on the staff of this bunch, so I get told things, and then I say yes, sir. That in the last 2 weeks, I'm to go to Muskegon, so I have not yet done any Michigan trips because we're further north in the city, and we just go to Wisconsin, but. Now I'm going to do multiple days in a row in Muskegon. And maybe you can tell me what goes on there. I don't know. Paul.
So Muskegon, I mean, that's good, I think, because Muskegon is one of the cities. It's a smaller city in Michigan, but it does have a significant African-American population there. So I'm guessing this is turnout. I mean, you're trying to maximize your turnout in Saginaw, Muskegon, Benton Harbor, and of course Grand Rapids, Detroit, Flint, etc.
Holland. What about Holland?
Holland is a very conservative overall, very white conservative. And the west part of, I mean, we joke sometimes that you've got Michigan and like Western Michigan is basically Alabama, but it's half true. I mean, it's a very conservative area of the state, Western Michigan. In part, it has to do with religious tradition. It's the center of Calvinist culture. And so you have a lot of this, Christian conservatives there. Some of those Christian conservatives are genuine Christians and they're Democrats. But it does, especially outside of Grand Rapids, it tends to be very conservative. I don't know. I mean, this is a question with this election. Maybe you would know better than I would. I'm trying to figure this out too. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself, but how many of those suburbanites are going to in the end vote for Trump? A lot of them are, no doubt, men in particular, but I think the question is women. And I think here in Michigan, I think it's going to come down to that.
Well, one of the major issues is in this election is gender. Abortions have increased around the country, even for women in states with rigid bans. And, the Democrats are placing a lot of hope on women turning out. Go ahead, Katy.
What we have run into in going to the doors, we will have on our little minivan that guides us, tells us which doors to knock on and who we're talking to at the doors. And we will have a female name on the address, and a male will answer the door. And we will say, we're here to talk to Jessica or Amanda or whatever. And he'll say that, well, they're not here. And then in conversing with him, of course, we'll find out he's a Trump supporter. I'm going to find this little thing I have over here that started a couple of elections ago, where you go into your nearby restaurants, gas stations, clubs, bars, whatever, and you go to the ladies' room, and inside the stalls, you put something like this, which basically says, "Hello, gorgeous." When you vote in November, your vote is your vote, and no one can see what you vote for in the polls. I hope you will consider protecting the right of women in your life by voting Harris Walls. And then there's the inevitable QR code. In any case, I've got these little Post-its that I'm going to hand out to a bunch of people in Wisconsin and Michigan in their remaining trips, and say, put them up, gals, put them up wherever they are. It's a hokey thing, I know that, but
no, I like it. It's creative.
I mean, the whole campaign is kind of creative in that way. For those of us who can't help ourselves but register people to vote, I bought these cards online, blank cards that I can send to all the 50 some people that I registered to vote this cycle, saying your vote is your power. Don't waste it. Get out there. Early voting has begun, yada, yada. And on Monday, when early voting started in the neighborhood, we encouraged people to do the senior stroll to the polls thing, which has kind of taken off. And a lot of people are doing that, getting their friends together and walking over to the early voting place, having coffee after and talking trash about, the whole situation that we're in. Again, it's particularly given that we're talking to Paul in Michigan, the entire debacle in Gaza is turning all of us just sick at heart with what's going on. And with our money, our bombs, we should definitely stop arming Israel if they can't stop bombing hospitals, burning children alive in beds with IVs in their arms. It's just outrageous. And so folks, some of the young radicals in our neck of the woods, Michael, are saying, well, I'm not going to vote for Kamala Harris because of Gaza. And it's tricky. I have to say, I couldn't agree with you more, but I'm telling you, vote for her because it's too damn close. And it is too damn close. It shouldn't be this close, but it is.
Following the election, I think I'm assuming she'll win, but I'm an eternal optimist, as you both know. But I think that as soon as she wins, we got to have some major demonstrations and, bring people out. Let's go over to Paul sitting up there in Dearborn in his study. You were on the show probably in the last year because we were concerned about the Arab turnout in Dearborn. A lot of people were upset about Biden's position, and they probably still are pretty upset that Harris hasn't done more to show some support for the situation in Gaza. How about it, Paul? Tell us what you see, what you know, what you think.
So, I'm here in my basement bunker in Dearborn, Michigan, and I'm part of this community, been here almost 20 years. So very aware of the feelings around here. It's hard to know what particular people are going to do, of course, because with voting and behavior is not linear in that way. I know I did door knocking the other day for the first time, and I'll probably do it a few more times before the end of the election in my own neighborhood, right? And so door knocking, that's not easy, and for me it's not, because it's like it's a private thing, and it's actually what a lot of people say to me. It's a private thing, and I want to tell you how I'm going to vote. The first guy I found was not a person that was on the list. He had recently moved in. He said, yeah, I'm going to vote for Harris, although I have to go to the other side of town. He's from East Dearborn. For those of you that know anything about Dearborn, there's basically two sides, West Dearborn and East Dearborn. I live in West Dearborn, which is still predominantly, I guess you'd say, European American, although there's an Arab population in West Dearborn, as there is throughout all of Dearborn. East Dearborn is predominantly Arab American, Arab and Muslim. So this was a young man who had recently moved from East Dearborn to my neighborhood in West Dearborn, and said he was going to vote for Harris, and his voting place was in East Dearborn. But then I got a bunch of people who were like, we already know that we're going to vote. You're the third person that's been here, which I think is a good sign, right?
Yeah.
Even though I'd gotten a list that said these people had not been visited yet, but there might be multiple lists out there, right? So who knows? But they didn't want to tell me what they were going to do. I had one woman that said, I take this very private. I don't share with people how I'm going to vote. She did come out and talk to me, so I thanked her for that. I had one, this is probably the most distressing for me, was a young woman probably in her 20s, maybe 30s, I think with a child, who did tell me she's going to vote for the Green Party. And she said she thinks her husband is a Republican. So, I mean, there's one thing that they don't talk about it that tells you that, which is true in a lot of these households, I think. And I said, okay, well, were you a supporter of the Green Party or where the Green Party before this election? And she said, well, yeah, because what I was sort of getting at was this issue that's been raised about Jill Stein and the Green Party sort of popping up every 4 years when they're not really doing a lot of organizing work on the ground. They're not really visible in movement circles and things like that. And I don't know if you guys watch Mehdi Hassan at all. He's been very strong on this, speaking as a Muslim and the issues that are at stake here. But again, it's somebody's.
Tell our listeners who that is.
Mehdi Hassan used to be on CNN. I think he's originally British, Pakistan. I think he's Indian or Pakistani, Indian, but Muslim political commentator and reporter. He was on CNN. He quit CNN, I believe, over a conflict over his reporting on Gaza in particular, and started his own media company. He's an excellent reporter. He's very, very sharp. He's very sharp on the issues. He's extremely critical of the U.S. position and politics in the Middle East, especially in Gaza. But he's also very, very clear in terms of what's at stake in this election with Trump versus Harris versus, the other options and so on. So I referred it to my son. My son is a practicing Muslim now. Many of his friends from Dearborn are young Muslim men and women. He hates what's happening in Gaza. He hates Biden as a result, I think. But he also realizes that they're starting to realize that Trump is a terrible option. So he was thinking about voting for Jill Stein. I've been sending him some material, because these young men, I think, are going to, are the ones that come out and turn out. How they're going to vote could be in such a close election. It could be, a real factor, right? So, I mean, we're in the situation where everyone is saying this is a jump ball, it's a coin toss, it's a crapshoot, whatever you want to call it. I have these feelings of dread that come over me. I think, in terms of the Arab Muslim population here, probably half are not going to vote for that voted last time for Biden. Harris are probably not going to vote for him. I think maybe the other half will. But I kind of agree with what Michael Moore said on this. I heard him the other day. He said, listen, I can't go to somebody who's in my community, who's a Michigan resident, who's lost family in Gaza and Lebanon, and tell them, you need to vote for Kamala Harris. It's up to us to bring out the votes to make up that difference with other people, because sometimes people need to vote their conscience, and you can't argue with them on their conscience. I'm, I guess, more upset by a number of people I meet that, whether they're Trump supporters or they're undecided, just the information they have, how low quality it is, how little information they have, and then how much disinformation is really reaching people on all these different levels, whether, it's about, Biden sending money to illegal immigrants instead of to FEMA, or all the different things that get circulated and that some of them stick, and or that Trump was really, really good on the economy and things are going to get better if Trump is reelected. That's the biggest one, I guess, that you hear. Probably the feelings that we all have about, why is it so close? Why are there people that can consider reelecting a man that was thrown out of office because of how horrible a president he was and how much stress he induced in the entire population and how he mishandled, a global crisis that he did face.
Let me jump in here. I think disinformation is one of the key things. And I keep wondering, I watch CNN and a lot of progressive outlets or sort of progressive. And I wonder how people don't get it, but people aren't seeing any of that. A lot of them are just doing some kind of social media feed that they originally liked something, and they just get a steady stream of this kind of stuff. So I think that's a real issue. And then one of the things that I think is important, though, maybe we could talk about, is John Kelly, who was a chief of staff, who's actually Trump's longest chief of staff. He basically called Trump a fascist yesterday or the last couple of days.
He did it on tape, and he did it on tape too. He was recorded saying this. I mean, he's the second one who said it. I mean, Mark Milley said that Trump was a fascist to the core, right?
Yeah.
So the question is this going to penetrate? I think what the Harris campaign has done, I think Harris is a politician. I actually like her as an individual and as a politician. I don't mind that she's a pragmatic politician. I actually think that's a good thing in many ways. But they've made a calculation. I think it's a cold calculation, but it's that they can lose progressives, Muslim Americans, Arab Americans in some places if they can pick up a certain number of suburban
Republicans,
women, educated folks, and Republicans that can't stomach voting for Trump, that do listen to things like what John Kelly says and what Mark Milley says and what other Republicans. So I think that's the gamble they've made. I actually have a good feeling today, sort of like James Carville, because I did attend the rally last night with President Obama.
Oh, yeah, you were at the Obama rally and the rapper was with him?
Eminem introduced him, and it was a whole, and Big Gretch was there, Gretchen Whitmer, the governor.
Oh, wow, cool.
Who was very popular. It was 12,000 people packed into, the Huntington Place, which used to be Cobo Center.
Oh yeah, I've been.
Did they tell everybody to go knock doors?
That's it. Yeah, that's what it was all about: getting people to go out and get your neighbors, get your friends, get them to vote. But then I get into the lift afterwards with my wife and daughter, and it's a young African American woman driving, and she says, "Yeah." I said, "We went to a rally, and Obama was here," and she said, "Yeah, I think Kamala Harris was here last week." And I said, "Well, oh yeah, she'll probably be here 3 more times." And the young woman said, "Yeah, why are they coming here so much?" I'm like, well, it is a swing state. And she's like, I'm definitely going to vote. My mom is going to vote. We're going to vote. But I think it's interesting that, we have to remember that people that don't follow this stuff, they don't know about the Electoral College. They don't know about the fact that even though that Kamala Harris will win a majority of votes, probably without a doubt, that doesn't mean she's going to be elected president. Yeah. And that's why these particular states are so important in these razor thin margins. My optimistic hope is, I think, like James Carville, and I think Michael Moore said this too. He said that the power and mobilization of women in particular in this election, and women, especially Black women and educated women, are some of the most consistent voters, that it will carry Kamala Harris over the edge in this case. And I'm actually secretly hoping that it's going to be bigger margins than we think, because a lot of the people that are saying they're undecided at this point are going to break in the end, especially the crazier and crazier Trump gets. But again, I mean, we've seen that happen so many times, and it didn't seem to make a dent in his 47%. So it's too close to be comfortable. Okay. I do have an optimistic feeling today, but I mean, I'm glad you're out there, Katy. I'm glad all those folks are out there talking to people, because I think even if you flip or convince 1 or 2 people, it's demoralizing to go to make 30 calls and only talk to 2 people, or to knock on doors, have people not home, people tell you to go away. I don't want to talk about it. But if you talk to 1 or 2 people and you inspire, you convince them to go, or you encourage them to go, that's where the differences are made. And I think you're right, Michael, the money that is showing up in terms of the organization, in terms of the strategies that are being employed, and the enthusiasm is real. So if we look at the history of these things, the more likable candidate, the one with more resources, a better ground game, tends to be the candidate who wins at the end of the day. And Trump has got a dismal message. I don't understand.
Nothing but dismal. We're going to be out of time. I just want to put in, look, people, we have one weekend, and then it's GOTV weekend. If you haven't done something yet, now's your chance. It is not too late. Some of the most important doors will be knocked in the next 10, 14 days and 13 days. And really, you want to be part of this. You definitely do not want to be there the day after we get the returns and say, gee, I could have done something. We have now to do it. And now also we're getting gas money for cars to do these carpools. We're getting gas cards, and they're going to pay for hotel rooms for people who stay in Muskegon for 4 nights in GOTV and just knock doors like fanatics all day long. And guess what? Blue states have to vote like their hair's on fire too, to get that margin that we want. We want 30 million votes between them. That's my dream, is that 30 million more Americans vote for my side than for the goofball. And it's still too many that are
Yeah,
voting.
we need what they had in France, with the wall that emerged when they realized the real threat of this is a real authoritarian threat. He means what he says.
Let's hope we got it. I want to thank you both for coming on live from the Heartland. Katy, I'll
Great to see you.
see you in the next few days. Paul, we'll stay in touch. It's always great to see your face. I remember the early days of the Live from the Heartland show when it was you and me and Katy, a few other people being the hosts. We had a good time. Say hi to your family. Katy, I'll see you later. Everybody else, stay tuned here on the left end of your dial or on YouTube, however you're getting the show. We'll be back with Win Noll and a little tribute to the late, great Barbara Dane. Welcome back, you citizens of the world. It's Live from the Heartland for the week of the 26th of October. And we're bringing on someone who's been on our show before, the one and only Win Noll. And she is from the Win Noll band. It used to be the Win Noll and the Rockin' Souls. Now it's Win Noll for Kamala Harris. And she has a new tune out. It's a single called One Step Forward, My Body, My Right. Hello to you, Win, and how are you doing?
Hi, Mike. I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
We're having a good day so far. We're looking forward to the rest of it. I listened to your tune. I really like it. Tell us a little bit about it. How did it come to be? How you're getting it out there? What's going on?
Well, it was honestly a guttural response to Roe versus Wade being overturned. It was a little bit of something I've never experienced in my lifetime. I've only experienced reproductive rights, and I just thought it was like a page from The Handmaid's Tale. I heard it. I heard the decision, a few years back. I literally teared up. And within hours, I started writing. I probably had the first verse because I just, I'm a really optimistic, glass is half full sort of girl. And I don't believe in pushing my dogma on anyone, but everyone deserves, a right to decide about their body. And so I started writing right away. And I never gave it a thought. It just happened. I was seized by the moment.
Do you write most of your material, or do you do songs that others have recorded previously?
It's a combination. Now it's a real combination. It takes courage to start really infiltrating your own music into your sets, because you're hoping and praying that it's received well, and you just have to dig deep. So I would say we're doing 5 to 7 original tunes right now in our show.
So this is released as a single already. So how do you get it out there? Is that on Spotify, on YouTube? I saw it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Is it actually a record that you can buy, or no?
Yes, Apple Music. It's on Spotify and Apple Music.
And people should just go to Win Noll. That's WIN.
Yes, you can go to
NOLL.
Yep, Win Noll Band, and it'll pull up, and probably some previous releases as well. But for this tune, yes, Win Noll.
Well, I hope everybody listens to it. We're going to include it in this show, which goes up on a number of platforms, YouTube, radio, CAN TV. Sometimes they won't let us play the tunes because of Spotify or rights, but people have it now. They know how to get it. It's Win Noll, One Step Forward, My Body, My Right. So how are you working on getting it out and trying to get this message out, and ever getting any airplay on it?
We're starting. Yes, we are getting airplay, and every event that's possible for getting out the word and getting out the vote, we are trying to attend, support, and perform. This is now my tool for getting things back in balance for women. This Friday, there is an event for a fundraiser for Planned Parenthood. It's at the X Mart in the city, in Uptown. It starts at 6 p.m. It's going to be a wonderful event filled with art, music, speakers. Come on down and show your support. I'll be performing.
It sounds great. And for any of the people who may be getting the show before it comes out on Saturday, they might get it on YouTube or on Lumpen Radio. That's an interesting event, and it is in Uptown, and it will be Friday night.
That's right.
Let's hear a little bit about you and what you do. How about your band? How's your band doing? And I know that you're not only a performer and a singer and a songwriter, you're a mom, an actress, and a runner, which we always like to know about. Tell us a little bit about how your days go and what you do.
My days go with a little work, business phone calls. Then they are all about running. I help my mom. I take care of a number of lovely adopted kitties. I get to work from home, so I can incorporate all of these things. That kind of sums up a day. I get to work from home. I get to help my mom. I get to take care of these beautiful animals that seem to have found their way to me somehow. I was always a very traditional 2-dog, 1-cat woman until my daughters and I moved into a new place. And it's, let's see, if you build it, they will come. Well, let's just say if you rent it, they will come. Somehow simply lined up outside of our place in need. It was a very, sort of bizarre scenario, but we had to respond to the call.
Tell me a little bit about your band. Who do you have in it these days? And what's it like being a white woman doing the blues these days?
Well, I'm a mixed race woman.
Oh, so good. I apologize. I cannot tell.
That's okay. That happens with mixed race people. And that's actually the beauty. There's racial ambiguity, so you never know, who's standing in front of you. So when you hear these soulful sounds coming from me, just know I am definitely a mixed race woman.
I am so glad to hear, and I apologize for not
that's okay.
Assuming that you were just a white person.
Well, here's the funny thing. I was doing a show and a guy walked up, and I was standing with my 2 Asian bandmates, and my mom is part Native. And he said the exact same thing. It's like, well, these 2 guys, he'd had a few, are obviously what they are, but how does it feel to be a white woman? I was like, no, I am not a white woman. I've been to therapy for this. I don't have to answer exactly what it is, but no, I'm a mixed race woman, and we're all here singing the blues and keeping it alive because this is a human experience. And we certainly acknowledge the African-American family and ancestors that created this amazing American music. So yeah, there's my whole spiel for that.
That's great. I got to say, I've been getting a weekly dose of the blues. I go to my friend. I've been seeing him for massage and body work for many, many years, like 30 or something. And he basically, now that he has Spotify, he'll just go Chicago blues or rural blues or whatever. And it's just amazing the kind of stuff that comes up. Some you've heard before, some are new to me, some are names I never even heard of, and I thought I knew a little bit. There's a lot of great music to hear out there.
Oh my gosh. And yes. And it continues to evolve in that light with just amazing new music and artists with their own take, which is just beautiful and a tribute. And I have 2 Japanese bandmates that are just, they've been here for 30 years and that was their choice. Blues is their choice of music, and they honor it so beautifully. That's Minoru Maruyama, that's Wabi Yaguchi. We've got Mike Flynn on bass. Cleveland Taylor has been on drums, and we've been doing it. And we actually had Brother John on the recording. And so whenever we can get him, we certainly try to, because he's just a wonderful addition to any musical event. So that's our current lineup.
Well, Win, do you have any dates coming up that are beyond this Friday so that we could hip people to them?
We do. I am solidifying things as we speak, but mid-November 15th, we have the Laren Club, the Rockford Blues Society. That's my family. We won the blues competition and went down and represented Rockford in the international blues competition. Steve Jones and his lovely wife Annette are just killing it with representing the blues and events and support. So if you can get to Rockford on that night, please do, because it's a worthy cause, not just us, but supporting that blues society. So.
And if people aren't driving to Rockford, they can go to youtube.com and they can find Win Noll. And the tune is One Step Forward.
Yes.
And it's the Win Noll Band.
It is. It's a Win Noll Band.
Well, you keep up the good work, and I'm going to come see you live one of these days. I've talked to you twice on the show, and I've listened to some of your tunes, but I'm looking forward to the live show.
Yes, I would love to have you there. Let us know. We'll give you a special seat.
Right on, sister. Okay.
Okay.
Everybody else, we're gonna shift now. We would have spent more time with Win, but a good friend of ours, Pablo Menendez, who's from the band Mezcla in Cuba, his mother, who is a renowned, first a jazz singer, a blues singer, a folk singer, Barbara Dane, just passed away at 97. And I had the honor of meeting Barbara and hanging out with her in Oakland when Pablo was in from Cuba. And she just passed away this past week. And people who don't know her should check out Barbara Dane. And here is an interview we did with her back in 2021. I think it was March. And you can find it on Can TV, on YouTube, live from the Heartland. But we're going to rerun some of it now. So everybody stay tuned. Enjoy it. I met your son, Pablo, in Havana when I was there with Athletes United for Peace. And I missed his performance, but we hooked up and we brought him to the Heartland Cafe on numerous occasions.
I know
we couldn't bring him when Bush was in power, but under the Democrats, he played a lot of times in Chicago. And
I love the fact that he plays Chicago, because I used to love playing Chicago myself.
It's a great town. I hope you can come back here again sometime and pay us a visit.
But in spirit, I'm there.
All right. I did get to meet you twice. Once was when you were playing with Pablo at Freight and Salvage in Berkeley, and another time more recently in Oakland. And we want to thank you so much for joining us. And let's start by asking you, how are you doing during this time of the pandemic?
Well, frankly, I'm doing fine because I don't go out of the house. I'm too old to run around, and to do much social life anyway. And what I really prize is the fact that Nina, my daughter, has moved to stay with me this last year and has been taking impeccable care of me all the time, even though she has cancer. And she sacrifices a lot of her own self sometimes. I think she doesn't like to admit that, but she's a reason I got to be 94, actually.
Caregivers are essential, particularly those in our family. Some of us have been on that journey as well. God bless you, Nina. Could you share with us some of your musical history, some of the high points as you think back on a really varied career? I mean, folk music and some R&B, and then there's this whole Cuban thread, and we'll talk later about.
Well, I always just sort of followed the music, and my mind about what I was going to play or sing was more concentrated on the content than the style. I've never particularly been interested in sticking to any particular style, because I'm going to be singing to people who like different kinds of music. I'll try to bring them something they enjoy, But I like the challenge of trying different styles and just being able to float around in the music world and pick up a thread here and there. If I like that song and it's in a different genre than I've ever sung before, well, I'll work on that a while and probably have fun with it. I started out wanting to do a lot of folk music because I was hungry for that. I was raised by parents from Jonesboro, Arkansas, and they came to Detroit, and I was born. Okay, so what they were doing was busily trying to erase all the signs of hillbilliness in themselves,
Yeah.
accents, customs, songs,
Yeah.
anything. Any of the culture was, as far as they were concerned, the culture was back there and never to be spoken about. So I felt like I had no culture. I knew all around me were kids from different countries. Parents were from wherever, from Iran, from Mexico, from everywhere you can think of. And I would say, well, I'm nothing when they ask, what are you? I'm nothing, because I didn't have any sense of a root, a base. So I was looking for that, and I guess folk songs filled that gap a lot, fill up that void. And then Pete Seeger came to town and asked me if I'd be the person who pulled together a People's Songs branch, which was a political activist singer's idea. And so I thought that was really cool. And I was living in Detroit. It's Depression times. It's after the war. Then after the war, there was all this union organizing going on. So I learned a lot of union songs, and I sang out in front of the shop gates and stuff, because that's where the people were and what was going on. And so then, I don't know, I fancied myself a folk singer, because that's what everybody was calling that kind of a thing, someone who had that kind of repertory. And I don't know, I eventually also liked pop songs and jazz, and liked everything. I was singing with a little pop, in high school, there's always a little pickup band here and there, kids that like to play. So I would sing Blue Moon, you saw me standing alone, or some of those silly pop songs. And, I enjoyed that. I thought that was very hip, that I could go from one to the other. And then I began to, I don't know, once I was bitten with any kind of a music genre, I had to have it. I had to do a little of it.
Well, it's interesting. You're talking about you're growing up in Detroit, and you felt like your roots had been denied because your parents are trying to turn over a new leaf. So you go out looking for your roots in the protest movements of the time. Some people referred to you as an opposition artist. Is that
opposition?
Is that a comfortable label for you to use about?
I never quite. I don't think I've heard that before. Opposition artist. I am a resistance artist. I don't just knee-jerk oppose things. I resist the things that are wrong. So, and I try to encourage others to do the same. That may be my problem. I'm the perennial outside agitator, because what else? That's what it is.
You mentioned starting in Detroit, singing, for people on strikes in the Pete Seeger group. But, you have quite a rich history of coming out of Detroit, being in Chicago, singing with Earl Father Hines, all kind of people. Then you go to Cuba. The FBI chases you around. Tell us a little bit
They
about...
didn't start then. They started when I was 18. By the time I went to Cuba, I was in my 30s at least. And no, they've been chasing me around ever since I was a teenager. I have evidence now. I have a big thick file. I can't even pick it up. It's over there somewhere. And some of it I have on CDs even. I started with the papers were coming so thick and fast once I got past the barriers of the FOIA, then they weren't coming fast, but they were coming thick. And I said, why don't you put them on a disc? And they started putting them on a disc. So I have a lot of evidence to the fact that they wasted tax money for some odd 50 or 60 years on me. And
is that the case? Wow.
I don't know what they thought I was going to do. I was doing what I was going to do, and they're not going to stop that. So what did they think they were going to accomplish with all this documentation, And I once asked Leonard Boudin, the famous civil rights lawyer.
Yes.
I asked him why he thought I was not brought in front of the HUAC, the House Un-American Committee, or all the threats that they put on Pete Seeger and others. And he said, I think it's because you've always been so out front with your whatever you're doing and what your connections are. They have nothing to extort you with, They have no way of twisting your arm, so they know you're not gonna. And every time they would come around and knock on the door and say, "Well, Miss Dane, are you ready to, would you like to have a discussion?" And I would just tell them to get the hell out, and basically gave them the middle finger, and that was our whole relationship for years.
Let's ask you, are you making any music these days, and what are you listening to?
I'm making music all the time. I'm irrepressible in that way. I can't stop. But making it in public and having people pay for it, no more. That's over. I'm not going to do it. I did a whole string of concerts for around my 90th birthday because my daughter and my son were both very actively set all this up mechanism, and it was. I think what they were doing secretly is putting goals in front of me so that I would want to live longer, and I would.
They did a good job.
And they damn well did a good job. Yeah. So I did, a major all-night concert, all-evening concerts in a couple at the Yoshi's, the famous jazz club here, one at the SF Jazz, which is the jazz capital of the West Coast. Down at UCLA at the I forget the name of the big. It's a famous room. Anyway, I did a lot of those concerts, and I came to New York and did something at Joe's Pub, and I think a couple of nights there, and then I went to Cuba with the band. My band, I say a band, but it's my accompanist. It's not you can't afford to keep people, a staff of musicians when you don't work all the time. You have to, one feeds the other. So no, these are people that live in the area and are the best and are available when I need them.
Well, Barbara, let me ask you before we let you go, only because we're limited in our time, do you have anything you want to add, or do you want to do a little short a cappella?
Well, I can always do that, I guess, but
That'd be wonderful. People would love it.
It'll sound really scratchy and like an old lady, but I can do it anyway. But what would I do?
You understands little Maggie.
Well, a couple of years ago, I was trying to find a song, a little something to stick into a program, not the whole song, but a little
ditty
stab of this. And I looked around online and I found this little verse which I'd then fixed up my way, and it was, I wrote to the guys in Australia who had written it, and they wrote back saying, "Sure, you can use it." Yeah, sure. And since then have been generous. Have even donated to the film that's being made about me. The guys in Australia whose song I was basically stealing. Great guys. And the verse goes, "Hey, Mr. Tangerine Man, build a wall for me. I'm so stupid that I don't know what you're doing," or something like that. I forget what it is. It just, I don't know. I can't sing. What could I sing else? What? My favorite way to end a program is Beverly Grant is a great songwriter. You should have her sometime.
Okay.
You know her? Do you know her?
The name.
She's on Paradigm. She has a group on Paradigm. She's also very active and wonderful, and directs a working class women's chorus of about 40 women that she directs for decades now. She's been, and she sings a lot and writes a lot. And anyway, the song that I of hers that I appropriated because it's so exactly right, and it makes the audience all stand up. And it goes, the chorus goes, "Together we can move mountains, alone can't move at all. Whoa, together We can move mountains alone, can't move at all. So that's the ending of a lot.
Wonderful, wonderful. We like that. And we love you, Barbara.
Well, we love you here, even though we don't able to get our arms around you and hug you. But thank you both for being here and being interested in all this and doing the work you do all the time.
Okay, all you citizens of the world, that's a wrap for Live from the Heartland for the week of October 26th. And I want to thank everyone who made this show possible. Certainly our guests, Katy Hogan, Paul Draus, Win Noll, and the late, great Barbara Dane. And I want to thank Hal James, our engineer, our producers, Tom Clark, Katy Hogan, and Lynn Orman. And we're getting close to that election. Don't forget, call your friends in all those red states and get them to come out and vote for you know who. And we'll be back next week, which will be our final show before the election. So we'll have some good input from some people in the know. Have a great week. Do good in the world. The world needs all the good that you do, that I do, that we do together. All power to the people.